How you doing?
Good, bro. How are you?
Good, thank you. Can't complain, man.
Love it.
Same old, same old. How's everything been recently? I know that you got the baby boy. You were just talking about how he's been keeping you up at night and stuff.
Yeah, I have a 1-year-old son. His name is Theo. And he's been quite the character between the hours of like 2 and 4 in the morning. So
Fun times.
yeah, for sure. But worth every minute of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell the people about yourself. I know, you're new to the industry. A lot of people still don't know you. So just tell them a little bit about yourself. Start with your full name, a little bit about your background, where you're from and all that.
My full name might be a mouthful.
That's why I'm not saying it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I'm leaving that up to you.
Smart man. I'm Tarek, but my full name is Tarek El Gamal Ortiz. The Ortiz is Puerto Rican, so I grew up in Puerto Rico, but half Egyptian, half Puerto Rican, multicultural, household.
Yeah.
And then moved to New York after that for college.
Mm-hmm.
After college, I decided to pursue a career in finance. So pretty hardcore experience, kind of going into the banking world as a 19-year-old.
And how long did you do that for?
On and off, because I did it all throughout college, every summer throughout college, which opened a complete different perspective to the world as a student, meaning you realize how hardcore and how competitive the world is,
Yeah.
So, you kind of buckle up and stop doing the things that you were doing once you realize that. But in all, about 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you start trading or did you just jump right into a firm?
It's a really long story, but the short answer is I was looking for a job in college, from hotels to restaurants. I was always bilingual, and this was in Puerto Rico my first year. And I saw that Goldman Sachs was recruiting on campus, so I went and I always knew I wanted to do business. Like, that was my thing at the time. I was in high school, and I even had my own promotion company. And like, I always loved the hustle and the grind and the business.
Oh, sweet.
I always had that.
I feel like the majority of the entrepreneurs that have been on here started like in high school.
Yeah. No, I my first business, I was like 14 or 15, and I would rent out clubs. Sounds really crazy, but like rent out clubs in Puerto Rico and like invite all my friends and have like organized parties, and was doing really well. Like, even my first year in college, we had like sponsorships from like Absolute and, Budweiser and things like that, which is really crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I always loved the hustle and, business in general. But I thought that, finance was kind of the more technical and complex of the business world. Hence why I said if I could, go after that first, it could really give me that foundation I need, for kind of anything else I wanted to do in the business world.
Right.
So anyway, I show up to campus one day at the University of Puerto Rico. I wasn't even attending that school there. I was going to go to Syracuse in New York, but I knew that Goldman Sachs was there on campus recruiting. So I just show up and I was like, hey guys, like, I'm going to Syracuse. I'm available right now to work. And they were like, sure, come on. Like, let's go and work. So
nice.
Like, before I even really got into the college world and like classes and all this, craziness in Syracuse, I actually spent like 10 months working on Wall Street, which was like really transformative. It wasn't in a trading role, to answer your question. It was more of risk than anything else. Like, my first job was called operational risk. So ultimately, we were looking at the firm's ability to potentially lose capital based on any operational event. Like, something falls off the building, hits someone, and you have to, pay a settlement. So like anything that could, like a fat finger error. This is obviously one of the most, it's a little technical, one of the most like common, but a trader would buy 1 million shares of Apple instead of 1,000, and it would cost the firm X amount of money in losses, right? Like,
right.
So how do you stop those things from happening? That was my first job in the finance world.
Right. So you were thinking about all the variables that most people don't.
Yeah, definitely. In finance, called like the black swan events, like the things that no one really thinks about, but that could happen, right? And it was interesting because I entered the world during like the 2007, 2008 timeframe, which was the financial crisis. So it's like the definition of everything that you think wouldn't happen happening. That's kind of my first segue into the finance world. So
wow. So you were kind of just thrown right into the fire, so to speak.
Yeah, you could say that. Like, people getting laid off, banks closing, institutions that were around for forever, kind of coming to an end abruptly. You would say were shocking for kind of the industry. So I was lucky to even have a job. Many of my peers were, not graduating with a secure position. So I was fortunate enough to, to be able to continue. But I ended up moving away from risk, doing a few other things. But where I spent the majority of my time was in investment management, which ultimately means I was managing investments for like really, really large entrepreneurs, families, institutions, things of that nature.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
At what point did you go from Wall Street and the investment management kind of deal into just entrepreneurship in general? What was your first kind of entrepreneurship gig?
I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur since high school. Like I said, the finance thing was mainly just to like challenge myself from like, let me get into the hardest piece of business possible and get that. I really appreciated my time in finance because I also met a lot of entrepreneurs and their lives were increasingly cooler than my own. So I said, you know what, let me try something out.
And that's a good motivator.
Yeah, definitely. Having them as your client and telling their stories, and each one had a really unique story. So I said, I want to give it a try. I was young at the time. I was only 27 when I left the finance world. And I said, why not? I could, take risks at this time in my life. At the time, I didn't have Theo waking me up between 2 and 4 in the morning. So I decided to start a on-demand car detailing company called Wash My Whip. That was in 2015 when I left the banking world. And Wash My Whip was essentially you press a button on your phone, someone shows up to your crib, washes your car, and then you go on with your life. The interesting piece is that it transitioned away from that into servicing large businesses like Uber and CarMax and Pep Boys and Hertz. So ironically, we started the business kind of in the path of going to people's homes, and then we ended up doing large companies. So that was my first segue into like the entrepreneurial world.
Nice. And how did you get from Wash My Whip to Cuddles? Like, what was your kind of segue into the grooming industry?
Route. It's so funny because I've spent equally as much time as an entrepreneur as I did in the finance world at this point. And my entrepreneurial journey, my finance journey was pretty wild, but my entrepreneurial journey has been even, more wild, right? Like it's never linear. It's never straight. It's always all over the place,
Right.
But ultimately I was servicing a really, really large company called Uber, but it was Uber's exchange leasing division, different division of Uber. And they closed. And that was like a good 40% of my business. It was a real important piece of the business. And when that happens to you as an entrepreneur, like we were servicing them in 10 states. So it was a huge blow, right?
Yeah.
It was a blow financially. It was a blow for momentum. It was a blow for your employees. It was a blow for morale, culture, a million things. And at that point, you realize you really need to do something that you're passionate about, that you love, that you deeply care about, like that you'll weather the storm with, right? Because there's storms, they're coming, it's inevitable. Everyone's going to see them at some point. So you want to make sure that you have a purpose behind what you're doing to be able to weather that.
If you're going to sit through a hurricane, you might as well enjoy it. Get a 12-pack.
Yeah.
Little weed.
Exactly. In Puerto Rico, where I'm from, if there's a hurricane coming, there's water stacked. There's not a single case of beer or liquor on the shelves, right?
Yeah,
so that's a good analogy.
Yeah. Same here.
Right.
In Florida.
Same in Miami. But in either event, that was just an aha moment for me in saying like, I really want to do something that I'm passionate about. And then a former client of mine from the banking world, a really, really successful guy, says, hey, Tarek, I'm starting a new business with all the former people that I started my last business with and that I sold for all this. Do you want to come and lead it? I don't want to really run the day-to-day. I just want to be a part of it. Do you want to run the day-to-day? And I was like, I have my own business. I don't know if that's possible or not. Let me think about it. And it was in pets. It was in veterinary, specifically in South Florida. And I've always loved my pets. Like I grew up with pets. I have 2 dogs and a cat now. And the way I thought of it was I will give up my car, which I was in the car business, right, in order to give an extra year of life to my dog. Like that's the way, so for me, it was really easy. That passion and that purpose, like I am obsessed with my pets, with their family. And I've always been intrigued by the pet world. So I thought of it as a really good opportunity to kind of pivot and go into a new industry, something that I was much more passionate about. So I ended up joining this guy who's a mentor of mine as well, a really good friend too, in running this business, this veterinary company. It was called Fetch My Vet. It was in-home veterinary care in South Florida. And we were going to people's homes, and with a vet and a vet tech, we were taking care of Fluffy on their sofa. It was an awesome business concept, but sometimes you also realize in entrepreneurship, not every idea and every concept is sustainable.
Right.
So having operated a veterinary company, I realized the software is just super horrible. Like, my eyes would bleed every time I opened my computer. It was just not any system I wanted to really use. And we tried a bunch. And at the same time, a lot of my friends and family and colleagues would be like, hey, do you know a veterinarian, or do you know a trainer, or do you know a groomer, or do you know a daycare? And then my own 2 dogs are 100-pound doodles that I adopted, and they obviously require a significant amount of maintenance and grooming on my behalf and on my professional groomer's behalf.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're 100 pounds, they're doodles, pet ownership is at all-time high. It was really hard to find a groomer. It was really challenging to actually find my first groomer when I adopted these pets. And the technology, again, just wasn't there. So I said, this is an opportunity that I think is worth me spending the next 7 to 10 years, or more, hopefully, just focusing on.
Right.
So that's the story of how I came to Cuddles.
Nice. That's awesome. I think that user experience is a huge, or I guess that's the way I would call it, like user experience is a huge motivator, because that's kind of what it was for me with Groom House. The first time I went to a seminar and filmed it, I was just like, this isn't. If I, as a camera person who has a lens that can zoom in from the back of the room, right, am still having a hard time seeing what's going on, how does the remainder of the audience feel? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that that's definitely like a huge motivator, not only for ideas, but also just innovation in the industry.
I think a lot of the innovation and a lot of the creativity that I've pulled from is frankly more like from a tech world and perspective. Right. And then really from the bridging it with the knowledge I have in the pet industry, right? Like, because there's a lot of innovation in the technology world, a ton. There's a lot in the pet world too, but the technology world in general as a whole, and technology touches so many different things now.
Right.
So, but your traditional definition of a tech company, that's a really innovative, iterative, fast moving, pace, experimentational type of environment, which I really appreciate. But you need to bridge that gap with the pet industry knowledge that I've built through my previous experiences.
What has been like the biggest challenge for you say, coming into the pet, not just the pet industry, but the grooming industry, from the finance world and from what you were doing before from the tech industry as well?
Yeah, I think that like the finance world is already so distant to me that I have the foundation almost like as a muscle memory, of how I analyze things, how I look at things. I feel that the biggest challenge is a huge opportunity. Right. It is the sense that there are so many variables when it comes to pets, right? And this is unique to the pet industry. And there's only one other industry that I think, there may be more, but there's one that immediately comes to mind where you have these challenges, and it's the baby space. As a recent father, I could say that. Like a baby can't talk to you. When you go pick him up from a daycare,
that's interesting,
or something like that, he won't be able to explain anything, or if he's in pain or anything, really. Similarly, the pet is the same way, right? There's a relationship between the pet service professional, and the pet parent. There's a trio there. And I feel that most other industries, there's a two-way relationship between the professional and the user, or the pet parent, or the client, right? It's usually 2 ways. Here you have a third component, and this third component, which is the pet, doesn't talk, can't explain that he has like a medical condition, can't say why he's scared or fearful of something. And as a technology company, right, that we're trying to solve for that, it is incredibly challenging because there's so many sizes to pets, temperaments to pets, breeds, medical considerations, right? And they're all unique. So building something that takes that into consideration, especially when the pet can't speak, is a really challenging but important thing that we're trying to solve for.
Right. And I know just from talking to you previously about kind of you building the app and everything, another issue not an issue, but another challenge that I've seen you run into is every groom shop is run differently, right?
Yes, that's another challenge. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I really like about what you're doing is just your commitment to build the app around what the groomer or the shop owner is looking for, right? Can you tell me how that's been important for you in terms of growing the business?
Yeah.
Being able to cater like that for your clients, essentially?
It's super important, for us to be able to grow the business successfully. And we haven't even officially launched yet, but it's something that is definitely one of the main reasons why we haven't launched is because we want to make sure that we can cater to multiple ways of doing things and not just one set way. One of the feedback we heard from a lot of the users is my current software doesn't let me do this and I have to work around it by doing Y, right? And I was an operator, right? Like I've run businesses on the other side, veterinary companies, car detailing companies, like I've run them and I've used technology. And I know that the technology is only as good as how it helps you run your business. So if there's limitations in the way I do something, then I really am not taking the most out of that technology and I'm not getting the most out of it, right? So one of our values is empathy. And I have this meeting, this with my team all the time. I talk about this all the time. And like, we really have to deeply, deeply understand what the user needs, what the groomer needs, what the pet business owner needs to run their businesses successfully for all of us to win and grow together, you know? So we speak to a bunch of our clients, of our early, waitlist users, beta users. We talk to a bunch of clients that are prospective clients that aren't using Cuddles, right? That are using other softwares. What do you not like about that software? Why? What is it that you're trying to accomplish that you can't accomplish? What problems do you have that you're not currently solving for? And then we're trying to build around all those things.
For the people who don't, because I'm familiar with the app, so I've been asking you questions about it, but just tell us a little bit about the app in general. What is it?
So Cuddles is a software that allows you to run your business more efficiently. And that comes in different ways for different people, depending on what your business looks like, precisely to what we were just talking about. But our primary, functions include things like helping you schedule your appointments more efficiently, things like managing your clients and your pets' records, their medical conditions, their contact information, things like managing your products if you sell retail products at your store. We have a entire staff module to add your staff members, put their calendars in there. And then payments is a very big piece of this as well. We're our own payment processor. Going back to my finance background and how it's impacted my, venture, this is part of it, right? I felt that being our own payment processor really sets us apart from everyone else and allows us to be much more competitive. So that's kind of the ideal way of using Cuddles is, the software to manage all your appointments and all your clients, and then the payment processing to collect all your payments. And then soon we'll be adding a marketplace, which essentially means, a platform for a pet parent to discover a professional pet groomer in their area and book with them. So that's kind of the first step towards that marketplace, right? Is like an environment for a pet parent to be able to log in, see their appointments, book appointments, manage their payment information. So, once we have the pet parent portal, it's pretty easy thereafter to kind of, launch everything else that we want to launch and grow from. Yeah,
I think that's super dope. I mean, I haven't seen anything else, like it. So, and that's pretty much, really what attracted me to the company in itself is just so innovative and so different. And just the way you're approaching your marketing, even, before you guys launch, all the attention to detail is super dope.
Thank you. That really means a lot, especially coming from Groom House. I know how focused you guys are on your attention to detail, and
we try
as well. So I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, that's all Nina. She gets all the props for
Nina
that shit.
Definitely is like, I know how it is.
Nina needs a mic to chime into these little things. Whenever we talk about her, because I feel like she gets brought up a lot now.
We need to have another one with her partaking in it.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things, man, that you've, going kind of back to the tech, one of the things you put us onto and that I'm super excited about in the future is the ChatGPT thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So how have you been using that to help with your productivity for your business?
It has been very helpful. I don't think it, and just for those who don't know, ChatGPT is like the new AI that has come out that could do some really wild and scary things. Like you could tell it to write a contract. You could tell it to write you a poem on a fifth grader's reading level. I mean, it's that powerful.
Yeah.
So when it came out, I just became curious, started using it, for just playing around to see what it came up with. And it came up with some really useful stuff. So it hasn't to this point substituted any specific role within Cuddles, but it really has helped, to your point, with like efficiency and productivity and writing things faster or getting something critiqued faster or coming up with just brainstorming ideas, right? Like, so, a perfect example with that is like, hey, what would be a good post to do today if it's, St. Patrick's Day and our audience is a pet groomer, right? Like there's so many different things that you could tell it and it comes up with just ideas. They're not perfect, but they help with, the brainstorming process and the editing process and things like that.
Yeah. Do you think there's any ways that a dog grooming business could utilize that type of AI for their day-to-day?
It's so funny because the other day someone posted, I think it was on TikTok or on Instagram. I'm not really sure where the hell I saw this, but they asked ChatGPT what industries are not going to be affected by AI, and pet services in general, like grooming, veterinary, daycare, came up as one of those things that wouldn't be impacted.
Right.
Which I thought was very interesting because you really can't substitute what a professional dog groomer does with AI, right? Like it's like the AI isn't going to necessarily bathe and do a professional haircut.
Yeah, exactly.
From that perspective, I thought it was really funny and interesting. But from the perspective of what they could use it for, I don't really see a day-to-day use, to be fully transparent today, just based on what the observations I've had are. But could it help with other things like, polishing your services agreement or polishing, your contract? Yeah. Oh, Nina has something.
She was saying that you can utilize ChatGPT to come up with some professional responses to your clients.
Yeah, to difficult client conversations.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good use case, actually. I think that it would be interesting, just from my 2 cents, seeing how that would be put in practice when you have potentially like 10 dogs in your salon and it's loud and the client's in front of you. So I think there's some challenges from like a put it in use perspective. Like every time I use ChatGPT, for the most part, it's, me on my computer in a quiet room, like just not having, you know what I mean? Like in the heat of the moment, that might be an interesting one. But if it's through text message or it's not in person, I think that would be an awesome use case. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like just some general like customer service stuff. I think would be cool.
Yeah, that's the other one, right? Like, so something that I've noticed isn't as prevalent in a lot of the salons are structure. And what I mean by that are like standard operating procedures, right? Like, hey, this is a handbook on how to handle difficult objections or client complaints, or just like a quick manual. It doesn't have to be too elaborate or sophisticated for your employees mainly, because as a business owner, kind of what your standards are and how you would want to handle a situation, but you don't always have those guidelines for your team. And ChatGPT, I think, would also be a great resource for you to be able to put together like a quick list of, hey, these are potential answers, again, to Nina's point, to objections or to difficult scenarios, and you share that with your team. I think that would be really, and you could probably put that together in like 5 minutes with ChatGPT too. Yeah.
Facts. I love it. I utilize it a lot for, even for like, if I have trouble coming up with questions or just ideas for when I do these podcasts, I ask it questions, and it's pretty cool because you can it'll give you some like general questions, some just, where are you from? And, little things like that. Like, how long have you been doing finance for? But, but you could really bounce back some ideas with it and tell it like, these questions are too generalized. Give me something more specific that'll invoke thought.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And it'll bounce back some really cool questions. So I've definitely utilized it like that, just to get ideas for questions, and just sometimes even content in general, like you were saying, like posts specific to holidays and things like that. Formulas. That was one of the things where you first kind of put me onto was coming up with formulas and things like that on there. So I know you're big with numbers and things, but I've used it for Excel formulas and stuff like that, and it's definitely come in clutch.
Yeah, its uses are endless. It's really surprising, and I know there's a lot of people who are scared out there in terms of like, I know accountants, lawyers, those are probably some of the ones that you hear the most, but at least we know that in the pet industry we're pretty safe from AI coming and taking over. But leveraging it for good use, with all the examples that we just gave, I think is super smart.
Yeah, for sure. And being that you're on the tech side of the pet industry, do you have any, let's say plans, but do you have any kind of goals or wants to kind of mess with AI a little bit? I know I do.
Yeah,
some ideas.
I as into how it could potentially integrate to Cuddles, or in what way?
Into Cuddles, yeah, like.
I think
have you thought about it?
Haven't given it much thought yet, just simply because the roadmap for Cuddles is so extensive. Like, there's so many things that we want to do, and again, I think that AI has its place, and I know that we would likely at some point maybe involve, AI into our search or into, potentially formulating responses for certain, things that may come in. So it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
I would say there's a couple of other things that we'll probably tackle first.
Right. Cool. Have you messed around with like the script or any of those like cool ass AI generated voices that sound real as hell? Have you seen those yet?
Have seen, for example, which I think is really cool, some technology that you could easily just feed it a script and there would be an AI voiceover in whichever accent you want, right? Like you could choose British or Australian, and it will actually read it like that. And there's one that takes it even a step further that will have an avatar, but like a person, like a fake robotic person.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Back too.
I forgot the name of that one, but I've seen that one too.
So there's some wild stuff for sure that's happening there.
I think the one you're talking about is the script, because what you could do with the script is you feed it X amount of hours of voice. So like, for example, I did it with Joe Rogan where they just uploaded a podcast and it analyzes the voice and the words and everything like that. And then in 24 hours, it'll have an AI version of that voice, whatever voice you feed in, whether it's yours, whether it's Joe Rogan's, with the inflections and everything.
Really?
It's insane.
That's really
And you
wild.
just type out what you want Joe Rogan to say and it'll sound just like Joe Rogan. Yeah.
That's super wild.
I mean, between, like you were saying, it's scary between that, especially like deep fake and things like that. Like it's crazy.
I was thinking this morning, and it's super random. Sometimes I have these random thoughts when I was walking my dogs. It's usually while I'm walking my dogs. And I was saying, wow, like I remember floppy disks. I remember the Walkman. I know for some people who, were born post 2000 X, they may not, but I'm not that old. I'm like I'm a pretty young guy.
Your mom yelling at you to get off the internet.
It's just a really interesting thing to think of that as prehistoric nowadays. Like when I explain Cuddles to folks and why we created it, it's because some of the softwares, if not most or all, are really archaic, hard to use, not easy to follow, and it's 2023. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Technology has
just moves
shifted so
fast.
much. Yeah. It's crazy.
For real.
And we've experienced a lot of it for sure. You know what I mean? From dialed up all the way to what we have now, which is insane.
How do you guys use technology? Because, you're an education platform and many other things.
Yeah.
But I know you leverage technology with a lot of the things that you do. So kind of what are those key?
We've been using ChatGPT a whole lot just to kind of come up with scripts and just general ideas. We've been doing a lot of changes in the company obviously with which launching the memberships with.
Yep.
Again, you had a little bit of hand in helping for us to come to that decision. But yeah, we've been utilizing ChatGPT to kind of just get like contracts and things together and things like that. So that's one of the business tools that we use a lot. The script is one of the things that I've been using a lot also. Because besides the whole AI thing, it's really cool because you can upload a video to it, and it'll take out all of the in between things. So it'll take out all the all the spaces in between things. So it saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
For the video editing side of things. You can also what it does is it brings up it transcribes the whole thing. So you read through the transcription and you're able to make the edits via the text, which is a really interesting way to go about video editing. And I do a lot of traditional video editing as well. I mean, our business is 100% run by technology. I mean, we're online. Everything that we do is via internet connection. The cameras, you know what I mean? We rely on technology all the way around. And
I think that's also what differentiates Groom House, right?
Yeah.
Is the fact that you guys are so forward thinking with your brand, with the technology. It's very clear.
Yeah.
I
mean, our only limitation is really money. You know what I mean? Because if it was up to me, I'd have an AI right now, like grooming AI tutor.
Yeah.
That's saying too much, but
no.
That'd be cool as hell. You know what I mean? Like just take a picture of a dog and they'll tell you exactly what you need to do to fucking groom that shit.
Yeah. That is not a bad thought process, but you'll get there.
Yeah. just need a little bit of money
you'll get
tech. There. I think I asked you, because I don't think people really understand just how much money goes into developing an app. And one of the things that we talked about a lot, and I think this is kind of a specialty area for you would say, is just it's just fundraising. You know, so for someone who is trying to get into the space of not just tech, just the dog grooming industry in general, like what kind of tips do you have in terms of getting funding in place to get some of these ideas funded and started?
Yeah, I think that building a all-in-one software / payment processor is probably a little bit different than, building another business. So I think that now more than ever, it is more affordable to start a business and to get it kicked off. You have so many different resources out there that, it's easier than what it used to be for our parents. And even like the word entrepreneurship and, starting your own business is encouraged, whereas once upon a time it may not have been, it's seen in a different lens, I feel. So there is much more angel investors and crowdfunding sources, GoFundMe pages. There's so many different resources that you could use to just at least get something off the ground. The truth is, and most people won't like this answer, but it's the truth.
Right.
You most likely will have to start bootstrap, meaning that you would have to figure out, how to leverage your own network of people that that may believe in your idea, or, your savings, of course, which may require years of sacrifice of saving in order to be able to do it, right? Like I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur from the moment I joined the finance world, but it took me 5-6 years in the finance world to be able to take that plunge and do that, role.
Right.
But
yeah, I don't think people think about that. Like, the lead up to making that decision, you know what I mean?
And it's never a perfect time. Like, trust me, when I left my job to become an entrepreneur and like take the deep dive, it was scary. It's
I'm
not
sure,
easy, it always is. But you take the courage and you move forward, and you're going to get your knees scraped, going back to like knowing that, things are going to happen. You just get back up and you move faster and you get better and you learn from it, right?
Right.
But going back to the funding, question, you have to prepare. Like the truth is, like, preparation is key for everything in life, and you have to prepare to take that plunge. It will never feel perfect. It will never feel right. And I just had a baby recently, and there's never a perfect moment also to bring a human into the world, really, right? So starting a business is one of those moments, but if you prepare for it and you leverage your resources wisely in terms of contacting people that are in your network that would trust you. And then once your business and the crowdfunding is another, approach to take. But once your business is a little bit further along and you have something that is proven and that you could show that it's proven, then you could go and start knocking on other people's doors, right?
Right.
But you should definitely be prepared to try to at least prove it on your own or as crafty as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, and you touched a little bit on just, how scary it is, right? How scary it is making these decisions and jumping into sometimes investments that you don't know if they're going to work out and things like that, right? So how do you get past that? How do you stay motivated to just keep going just as an entrepreneur, being as hard as it is?
It's the hardest thing I've done. Professionally for sure. And my days in finance were pretty dark sometimes too.
Why are you such a masochist is the question I have for you now.
It's masochism to its finest, because you work, and every pet business owner knows this. Like, there's no difference here. Like, I see it every day. They're working 6 days a week, 10, 12, 14-hour days. They have to sacrifice time with their family, with their kids, with their loved ones, doing hobbies and sports, because something needs to get done. So
sweat equity is inevitable.
It's super hard.
Yeah.
You got to put in the time, period.
Right.
It's like one of the hardest things you do, because you have to put in the time. Making payroll, paying your people, it's all on you, right? It's all on you. That's what it ultimately comes down to. But knowing two things. One, that it's going to happen. I feel like it's not being a pessimist. I'm a super optimist. Like, I tell my team every day, like, I don't want any Debbie Downers. We don't want these crazy conspiracy theorists on our team. Like, we want to always think of the world as in a positive fashion, and an optimistic way, in innovation and creativity, all the good things, channeling our energy in the good things and not the bad things. However, my job in risk, for example, earlier on in finance, going back to how I was impacted, that bad things happen. They're going to happen. There's probability that you assign to them happening, right? So when you have that lens, you're able to better prepare for when it happens. Like, going back to the hurricanes earlier, like, if you show up late to a Costco right before a hurricane is about to hit, you best believe that you are not going to get what you need, or you're going to be there all day. So in entrepreneurship, it's very similar, right? Like you better have a arsenal stash. You better have, contingency plans, like, because when those things happen, if you don't prepare for them, not always, but sometimes it could cost you your business, So it's just something for you to be 100% aware of. And then the second thing is meaning and purpose, going back to the passion. Like, if you really love what you do, and I feel like thankfully in the pet industry, everyone that I've come across is genuinely passionate about pets, about helping pets, about growing pets, about the industry. So I feel that one of those two things is already there, which is the innate desire and meaning behind what you do every single day. I think that will also do wonders when bad things happen, Yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, like you said, there's no lasting in this industry without the love of pets. It just, you're going to get too frustrated. It's like being a preschool teacher and not liking kids.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Right. You're just going to be miserable every single day of your life. So yeah, I definitely have, I felt that, the same thing. Like it always comes down to the same thing, the love of dogs. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I love about this industry at the end of the day. Pretty much everyone that I've met is just, absolutely bonkers and loves dogs. And
they have to.
That's what it is.
So this week I had a values meeting with my team. We hired a bunch of new, really, really talented folks, and they come from great institutions and places. But I wanted to make sure that they all were aligned with what we believe in as a company, because they're going to be talking to our clients. They're going to be talking to our, different team members, and they all need to be aligned with those things. I really believe firmly in having a strong value. And our first value is pets are family.
Right.
And I asked my team, I was like, hey, is there anyone on this call that has a friend that just doesn't really fuck with dogs? Right. And someone says, that person isn't welcome in my house. And I said exactly the right answer. Right. At the end of the day,
right.
I don't, and I truly, genuinely believe this. Like, pets have been something near and dear to my heart for my whole life. So as a company that I started, I want to make sure that everyone in my team love and treat and think of pets the same way. But honestly, I don't care how talented someone is. If they aren't obsessed with pets, they really don't have a place on the team. It's just that simple, So
yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the whole reason why we're here. I mean, it's the whole reason why I'm here. Had Nina never taken Deuce to get groomed at Pina's shop, there'd be no groom house. And I tell him all the time, he gets all the love and all the praise. This house is his.
I love it.
All these lights, all the equipment, they're all Deuce's.
I believe it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He's the star of the show. He's the reason why. He's been in the since the first video I ever did in the dog grooming industry was with Deuce.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it sucks. He's old.
Hey, but he'll always be part of Groomhouse now, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the beauty of it. His memory is now memorialized through Groomhouse, forever. So that's great.
I got kind of traumatized a few years back. There was this video on the internet that went a little viral, and it was this, I want to say Irish or Scottish, just, one of those kind of accents. And the dude, it started off as just like a really sweet poem about a dog. And it's just like, one day your dog will die.
Don't even like me. I would start crying. Like my.
I mean, it's a cool poem. It's, it's about, just their time here is short, and you gotta spoil the hell out of them, let them get dirty, let them do all the things. But I always think about that, or we think about the dogs. So it's said in the house all the time.
100%.
Especially when she doesn't want to let them have like chicken nuggets.
Well,
I'll
be real. Like the truth is, the story of Cuddles is 100% attributable to Paco and Tommy, because I couldn't easily find a groomer. Like, they're at the core of Cuddles and everything that we do. And I always ask myself, like, if Paco can't talk and he can't say something to the provider, like, how could Cuddles help him? Right. It's all, how could Cuddles always help the pet? Like, that's really, I mean, we think about the groomer and the pet professional, obviously, because we're here to help them too, but the pet is the core.
Yeah, for sure. You say it's Paco and Tommy.
Paco, Tommy, and Sylvester. We can't forget about the cat that I rescued.
Paco, Tommy, and Sylvester. And Paco and Tommy are both doodles?
Yeah, so Paco's a Bernie doodle, and Tommy's a golden doodle. Okay. And I adopted both of them when they were 10 and 11 months.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. You got them young.
Yeah, I got them young. Cool. I got them young. But
that's good.
Yeah, they're part of me. They follow me everywhere. They're on all our meetings. It's fun.
That's what's up, man. Do you have a favorite dog breed, or you just you like your doodles?
No, I mean, honestly, I had two wieners back in the day growing up. I had a Yorkie when I was even younger.
Yeah.
So I've had multiple breeds throughout my life, and they all have their personality and their kind of unique traits that I can appreciate.
Yeah.
So I always feel it's, on the pet parent and their behavior and their lifestyle. And now I'm a very active person. Like, so I go and, I take them out a lot and they're outdoors, and Paco lives, for that. So I think that also just kind of depends on your lifestyle. But I love labs too.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of labs. Poodles are obviously gorgeous and beautiful pets, and
Nothing has stood out to you a little bit more now that you've kind of seen the dog grooming stuff more?
Bichons for sure.
Bichons are cool.
Bichons for sure.
Fluffy little clouds.
Yeah, I just love their looks and what you could do, artistically with them, and all the Asian cuts, and they look all beautiful. Poodles, certainly, like I said, I think there's a lot of mastery there. So I think those two would probably be the immediate, kind of in your face
right
breeds.
Yeah, for sure. Poodles rather, definitely, especially at the shows.
For sure.
Between, the competition, which the poodle class is always the biggest. And then even in the salon mix, the majority of those are poodle mixes. And then in the creative, they're all poodles. So poodles are huge. Yeah, definitely a huge part of it.
They're huge. And like the Centennial class webinar that you had in December too, that was a poodle too. So it's just like, it's stuck in my memory. My brain.
For sure. I think the breeds that kind of stuck out to me the most were the terriers and stuff. Like, yeah.
What was it about them specifically that caught your attention?
I like very like clean and sleek. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I see that. I like that aesthetic. And that's that's what they are to me, especially the Lakeys. I love Lakeys so much. Yeah, Lakeys are dope as hell. Yeah, I just love how sporty they look, and they always look like they're ready to fuck some shit up. Yeah, like on go. Kerry Blue is my absolute favorite breed, but I think in terms of ownership, we got a couple of rescues ourselves, but I'm gonna end up with a poodle at some point.
Yeah, you've always mentioned that.
Yeah, I have to get one. Yeah, for
sure.
I
certainly think that very well may be one of my future breeds, especially now having at least the half of it with the doodle. I think the half that I appreciate the most is the poodle half. So I think that might be up my sleeve.
They're amazing dogs. I love them. I love their personalities.
Super smart.
And they're sporting dogs and stuff. They're super smart. Super smart as hell.
Yeah.
Any plans for Cuddles in the near future? I know you guys haven't launched yet, so any launch date yet?
So we just hired some really, really talented folks that are going to make everything super smooth and super, amazing. And that has all happened in the last couple of weeks. So we're just waiting for them to be super firmly grounded in their different roles to be able to just meet the demand, frankly, just because there's been a lot of folks interested in what we're doing. We have been, handpicking people from the wait list so far, and everyone that we've handpicked has been very astonished and blown away by what we've built. So we're really eager to launch and get this live, but we want to do it right. We want to really differentiate ourselves. And it's like, just like starting a new business, there's never a right time to launch it either.
Right.
There's always something else that you want to do. I know that we were talking before the podcast about the membership and how, you guys just set the date and did it. And I applauded you because that is such an admirable thing. But we should be setting a date, hopefully later this week, early next, and we'll be announcing it. So.
Looking forward to it. How long have you really been, building this? Like how long have you really been curating this baby of yours?
The honest answer is 7 years. And I'll tell you why. I came up with the idea for Cuddles exactly 3 years ago. It was like literally as the pandemic was hitting, it was kind of when I started, talking to people. You want to be part of the team. Let's start coming up with designs, things like that. 7 years is the time it took for me to learn everything I needed to do to be able to do Cuddles the right way, right? I've scraped my knees so many times, washed my whip, losing a huge customer, fetch my vet, realizing that it's really expensive to take a veterinarian and a technician to someone's home without charging them $2,000, right?
Right.
So all those built up experiences as an entrepreneur, learning about business models, learning about marketing, learning about customer service, learning about branding and design and technology, that took 7 years, and I'm still learning so much. Like, this amazing team that I brought on in 2 weeks have taught me so much too from their experiences. So it's an constant learning process that you never stop learning. Like I literally eat books and audibles and master classes, and I just eat them, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's the way I live my life, because that's what it takes to be able to do something confidently and successfully. And you'll never have all the answers, but it'll at least give you the confidence of like, hey, I could do this. But it's been 7 years, man, learning all those things. To answer your question more directly about Cuddles, we came up with the idea 3 years ago. And then we started like actually building it probably about 2 and change, because it does take some time to, people think of technology and they think of a coder, right, behind a computer screen. But for you to build beautiful technology and technology that's functional and that's, adaptable to all those different use cases that a pet business may have for it, it takes a lot of different skill sets and different people. That's not just writing code. And that's where it starts getting a little out of whack. You need a really good designer, right? Someone who really understands design, not just from like a color and is this pretty, but what's called user experience. Like, how do I interact with this product? So you need someone for that. You need someone for the actual UI potentially, which is different. Like, what colors do I want it for it to look like? The coder or coders in our case, right? And then you have the product manager who's like coordinating all of it. Like, there's so many different pieces. So it took some time to ultimately get all these right pieces in place and start doing things. But dude, it's been 3 years since I said I want to do Cuddles, and we're now launching, which may be a little bit longer than most companies, but we're also we're building something that's astronomically ambitious. Like, it's not easy to do what we have been doing.
Yeah. I mean, you're stepping into a space where there's already products that exist.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for anyone that kind of feels like that? That's like, they want to do something that's already kind of existing and they think they can do it better?
Look, this is going back to my finance background. Like, if you look at the top 50 companies 50 years ago or 30 years ago or 20 years ago, they're not the same top 50 companies that they are today. Like, they don't even remotely look the same. And I was actually joking with you guys once when I first came here that, you have the poster of Times Square with all the different sponsors. And for those who don't know, Nina actually drew that, which is incredibly impressive, because I thought that was like a professional piece that someone purchased like at an auction or something. So like, kudos. Every single brand in that poster is completely different than the brands that you see in Times Square as you walk through today. So the point that I'm trying to make is, a lot of these bigger companies get sleepy, get comfortable, lose the oomph and the innovation. They move slowly. There's a lot of red tape, and there's always an opportunity to do things better and faster and different, right? That adds value. So I don't think anyone should be discouraged when they see competitors. Obviously, there's varying degrees of that.
Right.
If you're going in and you want to build the next Amazon, good luck, right? Like, it could happen. Like, someone went and built Jet and sold it to Walmart, right? Kudos, God bless. But, never think that, hey, there's a competitor out there, I can't do this.
Right.
And, like, you should ask yourself, is there an opportunity to solve something based on a problem that people have that is currently not being met? And do I have what it takes to be able to meet that need, right? Like, that's how you should frame it.
Awesome. I know you were saying you're big on education, continued education. You're constantly doing master classes and reading books. Is there any books that you have that you suggest to anyone? Any books that kind of have changed your mindset a lot?
Oh, there's a lot. And there's some books that, as long as you take one thing from it, I think it's valuable. There's, on leadership, for example, I played sports growing up, and it's a book that I'm currently about to finish, which is Bill Walsh's book on leadership. He's one of the most winning coaches of all times from the Francisco 49ers. And he just talks about leadership from a sports perspective. I think that is a really good one on leadership. Negotiating, which is part of everyday life, and we don't think of it like, Nina was talking about difficult client interactions.
Right.
I think one of the best books for something like that is called Never Split the Difference. That book is Chris Voss's book. He also has a masterclass, so if you want to check out the masterclass,
Chris Voss. Okay, cool.
That book, Never Split the Difference, I thought was transformative from just how to deal with people, how to diffuse difficult situations, how to not match people's energy when they're upset, and how to bring them down from wherever they are. I thought that was a really important book that, kind of has shaped the way I ask questions and handle difficult interactions. So those are two. I mean, there's a couple of others on habits that are really good. Like, classic ones like Atomic Habits or the actual book called Habits is a really good one too. And then there's one that's called Peak Performance that I really enjoyed as well, which is just a quick, snapshot of how to be a beast, and things that you don't think of that you really need. So like sleep is really important. Walking outside. So walking your dog is really good for you actually to ground you, exercise, meditation, eating healthy, and all those things interact. Thought that was a really good book. I mentioned sleep. There's a really good book on sleep too that I found was really interesting from a biological perspective.
I need to read that.
Yeah, that was mind opening. There's actually a masterclass on this guy too.
Yeah. On
sleep. So, if you like it on video format, Chris Voss and sleep, you could check them out on masterclass. And if you want to read the book or the Audible, they're both available too. So, and there's plenty more, man. I enjoy psychology a lot, just how people think. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of the old school self-improvement stuff. So, like As a Man Thinketh.
Yeah.
James Allen. Mm-hmm. I reread Think and Grow Rich.
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
That one's good.
I read the updated one. So they have the first one I read was the old one that had like a lot of anecdotes that really just don't apply to 2023 anymore. So they have an updated one that's a little bit, more like they talk about Jeff Bezos and stuff like that. And then
I have to check that one out. I haven't checked the updated one.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
It's really good. It was nice listening to it again. I actually I didn't read it this time. I bought the Audible book and just listened to it.
Are you more of an Audible, more of a reader? I always ask.
That's the first time I ever did it, just to kind of see, because like a lot of times I'll work and throw a podcast on or something like that. So I was like, let me see if I can do this with a book and kind of retain some of the information that's going on.
Yeah.
And I think I like reading like old school more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that a lot because I feel like it's a dying art, right? Like actually picking up a book and flipping through the pages and highlighting and writing,
Yeah.
And it's also nostalgic because when I grew up, there were no audibles, right? And there was no master class. So the only form for me to learn was to go to the library, Dewey Decimal System, pull out the cards and go find the book, So there's something about that like evokes old memories, if you will. But I appreciate 2 audibles. I mean, I listen to a ton of audibles when I'm walking the dogs. That's a moment for me to just absorb information on that 30, 45-minute walk. I'm using it for my own education.
Right.
What podcasts do you listen to?
I've been listening to Lex Friedman a lot lately. Joe Rogan. Mm-hmm. That's about it really lately. I've been taking a little break on kind of just consuming content in general and just kind of doing my own thing. And
you need a purge.
Yeah,
you also need a purge sometimes. Too much content is overwhelming, you know?
And I feel like, not only is it overwhelming, but you can kind of get inspired by stuff by not even realizing that it's inspiring you just by consuming it pretty frequently. You know what I mean? So just as a way to kind of push myself to stay creative and not be influenced by other things, I just have been chilling and just really, it really just depends on whatever I want to, consume that day. That's kind of how I've been utilizing like the internet and stuff like that. Like instead of just listening to my usuals and things like that, it's just really a matter of like, oh, what do I want to learn today, or what do I need to learn today, or
for sure,
So especially lately since we've launched, it's just that's how I've been utilizing the internet. Is just as an educational tool, really.
Yeah.
It
should. I mean, there's a ton there.
It's too much.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of filter through it. You know,
I wish some of this stuff would have been around when I was a kid, man. At the same time, I don't know if I would have made it out of high school if we had Google and stuff like that. I'd been like, fuck this shit.
Yeah,
I could do it myself.
I think I don't know. I don't know how that would turn out.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll figure out. I'll see how my kid does in 30 years.
Yeah. It's inevitable. I got my son now. He does homeschool and stuff like that. And, I know he's up there Googling shit. I know he's up there, with the math apps and things like that. And it's just like, you can only do so much. And I mean, as an adult, like if you're gonna use a calculator, use a calculator, right? Like, it's not a huge deal. So whatever helps you get things done quickest and most efficiently, and we have tools and technology to help us. So
I'm with it.
Yeah, I feel kind of like when we were at school, teachers didn't really understand that. So, we kind of got scolded whenever we try to embrace technology. But now it's just a matter of like, you have to. You can't not embrace technology. You're going to get left behind.
that's the reality of it, right? Like both my parents were educators. My mom's a high school teacher. My dad was a college professor. Like education was always big in my house. Obviously, I was kind of the rogue person that went off to business, but that's what I tell my mom, for example, all the time. It's like, hey, if whoever doesn't use it is just dispensable, unfortunately, unless you do, pet grooming or pet services or some other, type of unprotected job. But otherwise, good luck.
Yeah. But even that, like trades, you don't got to go to college for. You don't even really got to go to high school for stuff like that. Some people start grooming super young and can jump right into it.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, there's always a need for embracing technology in everything that you do.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm really referring to more like the AI stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, now you can't really, there's no way, in my opinion, that you could run a successful business without utilizing technology.
I would agree.
Yeah. And with you guys too, now that we're kind of on that.
And maybe you can run a successful business. It could be more successful.
Right. Definitely. Because there's definitely successful businesses out there that are still on pen and paper. For 100%. Sure.
There is.
Yeah. I know you're transferring some people over from that.
It could be more successful.
Right.
It's just, you need to embrace it. You need to also welcome it, because if you really have this mental block with it, it just won't work. You know?
One of the things when we first met that you told me about, kind of just you coming into the industry and kind of your approach on how you have brought visibility to Cuddles, your whole marketing approach.
Yeah.
You said you recognized very early on that it was about the groomer. Groomers directly helped you build your company and get visibility out there. Has that been instrumental for you guys?
It's been the only thing that we want to do and will continue to do, right? Because at the end of the day, I am here to help a groomer be more successful, right? That's my job. So we need to focus on the groomer, right? Like we need to focus on doing things that resonates with them. Everything that we do, that's the conversation. You know, my background's a little different. Even though I love the pet industry, I'm in the pet industry. Like I came from a different background, so I have to detach from many of the things that I've experienced in business and my team as well, to be able to really, really understand as best we can the groomer. And that has made us bring professional groomers literally on our team, right? It's not like when we say Cuddles was built by groomers, it's because we've actually worked this entire time side by side with professional groomers to build a product that best suits their need, right? This isn't just me behind a computer screen or with a whiteboard just saying, I want to do this. No, like what value would that bring? It's me, my team, sitting next to groomers, being in the business with them, seeing the flow of the dogs, talking to them to hours on end, understanding what they want, what they need, what their problems are, what their pain points are. And all we're doing in marketing is just messaging that, right? Like we're taking everything that we've heard and we're just saying, hey, this is what we're hearing, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're doing in marketing or in sales or anything else is adding value, is helping. Like many times people have negative connotation to sales or marketing. And I say that to my team all the time, because you think of that used car salesperson or someone trying to push something down. And that's not the goal. Like the goal here is to help. If we could figure out how to help and deeply understand, like truly, genuinely, deeply understand, what do groomers like? What are they thinking? What would make their lives easier? If we could figure that out, if we could actually be there in every moment, with all the different scenarios that are coming up, be it the mobile, be it the in-home, be it the, brick and mortar, be it if you do retail or you don't do retail, if you do, daycare, if you don't do daycare, if you do, pricing by hour or pricing by pet size, or like we need to deeply understand every thought process that's going through a groomer's head to be able to build something that not only helps them, but resonates with them. So that was a long answer because it's everything that we do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know that that's been a huge part of you building Cuddles in general. And it's part of the reason, another reason why I was so, attracted to you is because, well, you're a very handsome man, but not like that. Yeah. But, part of the reason why I there was synergy there between us is because I feel like we kind of took the same approach when it came to this. Was we were thinking about the groomer first, right?
I honestly say that you guys are a huge inspiration when it comes to that, because, you truly have ingrained yourself as part of the community in a genuine way.
Yeah.
Right. And it has to be genuine. Like you genuinely have to want to help and care and be there and understand and form part of the community. Right.
Yeah.
Because if not, people will notice that, people will catch up on that. And like, it's not going to do anyone good. So I admire you guys because you guys came from, you know, a video production background, a marketing background, very similar to me, like, you know, finance, a non-groomer background. Right. But you've been able to deeply understand the groomer, deeply be part of the community, help as best as you can, drive significant change, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, that change happens, and that help happens when you're coming in from a different lens that's not part of the original community. And that's why, like, some of the people that are more successful on our team today have come, for example, building the best technology and software for human hair salons, right?
Right.
So, you know, they deeply understand how to build technology for a different industry, but coming into the pet world with that lens, coupled with they're all pet parents, they all love pets, they all are now meeting obsessively with our grooming community, right? Like every single one of them, the first 2 weeks has been back-to-back meetings with every type of groomer you could imagine. A competitive groomer, a multi-salon owner unit, a mobile groomer, an influencer, like all of them, my team has been deeply, deeply ingraining, but bringing that outside perspective in. And so like the fact that you guys have been able to do that successfully, like I applaud that in such a huge way. And I'm such a huge, you know, I'm inspired by that.
I mean, for me coming in as an outsider, I think, you know, I immediately kind of like fell in love with the art of it, really. You know what I mean? It's the first show I went to. I mean, coming from an outside perspective, not just from a different industry, but just from the fact that I never grew up with pets or anything like that. And whenever I did have pets, they were all short hair dogs that all they needed was bathing. And I can't even recall if I ever trimmed nails before. So, I mean, like, you know, the whole grooming industry as a whole was new to me, right? So I was just super impressed by, like I said, the art of it. And I just tried my best to capture it beautifully, because when I did try to go and look for inspiration in regards to just to see what was out there in terms of content, I didn't see anything. So I really, like you said, I had to go to the barber industry, to the human side, and kind of see what was going on there and how they were approaching content and doing things. And I got a lot of ideas from them. But even the education side, like there's nothing like that on the human side yet. So
yeah, no, for real.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But yeah, coming in from as an outsider, it definitely gives you, I think, a fresh perspective, because you're so deep in things sometimes that it's hard, you know, for insiders to see things that others may be able to see.
And it's easy to get comfortable and used to things. Yeah,
for sure. And you know, for me, it was a little bit different because yes, I'm an outsider from the grooming industry coming into the grooming industry, but I also prior to that was in the veterinary world, which gave me at least some perspective on the pet and the relationship and the dynamics, and which also brings in a different perspective. I could tell you, I went to Hershey last year and it was an amazing, amazing event, show, convention. I genuinely was blown away.
Was that your first one?
It was my first big show. And frankly, I was completely blown away by a couple of things. The artistry, for sure. Like I honestly, hats off to groomers. They're some of the most talented artists out there, right? Like they generally do some amazing things.
Yeah. And they're generally just, I mean, besides dog grooming, a lot of them are artists outside of
super
that.
Creative.
You know? Yeah.
Super creative. And I can tell you very different than like say VMX on the veterinary side, super different. And forget about the finance world, you know? And I love that. I actually genuinely appreciate that more than anything. The fact that it's an industry that fosters so much creativity, so much, you know, new ways of doing things. And I think you on the education side, it's super relevant because there's always new ways and new approaches. You know, you have the honor and the blessing of working with some of the best groomers in the industry, on the planet, the world. And
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible even when they are learning new things or when they together are asking themselves questions on a live, right? And, you know, it just shows that it's a space where there's constant creativity.
Yeah.
There's constant, you know, feeding off that.
Yeah.
I love
And
it.
the instructors were a big motivator in the reason why we wanted to launch the platform. And because we just felt that there was some improvement as into how instructors were getting paid out and things like that. And just the overall system that was in place for them, I didn't really feel was for them. So that's the reason for our platform, is really for the instructors. You know what I mean? We wanted to do something different for them. We wanted to do something that not only offers an opportunity to make, a lot of money initially, but something that could make money for them forever. That has been our biggest thing, is just the instructors, and really honoring them and showing them that what they do is not only valued, but is super important. And it all comes back to the same thing, as long as this education is out there. And part of the reason why, we did the memberships and, with your help, was because we wanted to make it more accessible. And I think that's something that we always set out to do, but it was just a little harder with the whole a la carte thing. So now that we have, we're doing what we're doing, and we're making things more accessible for dog groomers, we're hoping that the result is, a lot more educated groomers, which ultimately ends in a better industry that can charge more, you know what I mean? But also these dogs benefit from it. You know what I mean?
sure.
Just from
Absolutely.
the education, just from learning. And
Yeah.
because part of what we do is handling too, and prep and things like that. And all that helps with the health of the dog and just the overall experience, for everybody.
Yeah, I see that there's a lot of similarities in kind of the way we see things,
Oh, yeah,
the way
for
we
sure.
approach things, which is why I think we also gravitated towards helping each other, working with each other, collaborating,
Yeah.
engaging. So, I love that. I love that you guys are certainly transforming the way instructors are getting paid, monetizing, being valued, being brought in, but then you're also deeply focused on the pet, right? And
Right,
how we
yeah.
can help the pet ultimately, which I love.
Thank you, man. It's been great talking to you. I always like
Likewise.
to close these things off with some word of motivation. So for any entrepreneurs that are trying to get into the pet space, that aren't necessarily from the pet space but see opportunity here, what words of encouragement do you have for them?
It's the best space in the world. It's just that simple. Why would you want to be in any other space is what I would say. I wake up every morning thinking about how I could make the lives of dogs and cats and pets better all over the world, and how I could support the professionals that love and care for them every single day. Like, how much better could that be, right? So motivation for an entrepreneur who wants to be in the pet space, that should be enough, going back to the passion. And if it's not, then it's probably not the best space for you, but it is the best space on the planet.
Well said, man. Awesome. It was great having
Hey, man,
you on.
thank you as always. It's an absolute pleasure, brother. Much love as always.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks again for coming through.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys on the next episode of Sheer Passion.